everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Daily Signal's Top 10, where we're breaking down all the stories of the week, many of which have not gone reported, well, I should say misreported in the mainstream media. And here to do all of that with me today is Daily Signal senior contributor Jarrett Stepman and our colleague at the Heritage Foundation, Tommy Binion. Let's get started first with a big story that's breaking news that I know a lot of people are outraged about, and that's the fact the illegal immigrant was found not guilty in the killing of Kate Steinle. Take a look at her father testifying here.
In fact, the day she was killed, we were walking arm in arm on Pier 14 in San Francisco, enjoying a wonderful day together. Suddenly, a shot rang out. Kate fell and looked at me and said, "Help me, Dad." Those are the last words I will ever hear from my daughter. The day Kate died, she changed her Facebook cover photo to a saying that said, "Whatever's good for your soul, do it." That truly describes Kate's spirit.
So many people found the jury's decision out there surprising. Tommy, were you surprised with the decision the jury came down with?
I was shocked. It is a heartbreaking story. I'm sure the audience is heartbroken by the clip we just watched, and I was shocked. You know, when the story first broke, I actually didn't know that the accused was talking about it was an accident. His story changed throughout this trial. It was reported as a murder. I still think that's what it was. But yeah, I was shocked. So a lot of things that where this story can go from here. The Justice Department is looking at possibly making it a federal case. Mm-hmm. The ICE director said as soon as they're able to, they're going to deport him. I hope this time it sticks. He's been deported 5 times. And I'll tell you what, the last thing that should happen, the Senate should pass Kate's law. The House has passed it. It is the correct response to the abominable policy of sanctuary cities. Those policies are certainly to blame for this, just as to blame as the accused is. So the Senate should pass that right away.
Jared, many people are going to say, what was this jury thinking? Just another example of everybody in San Francisco is crazy. But the reality is, while some of that may be true,
right.
There was a lot this jury couldn't consider, right? There were just many factors that would have really pointed towards finding a guilty charge here, but they were told you can't consider that.
Absolutely. I think that was one of the problems with this case. And, look, maybe the prosecution got a little too aggressive. That's what some people are saying. But I think when people kind of judge this, they say, look, this guy, clearly he killed this young woman. He says he pulled the trigger for the gun, and now we see that he's literally getting off with nothing. He served almost 3 years in prison because he was an illegal immigrant carrying a firearm, a man who's already a felon. So he's already done some time. So after this, he's going to be able to just basically walk free. Now, I think he's going to be deported right after, but it still seems like an incredible abridgment of justice that this man who's been accused of these really heinous things is going to get off. So I guess the biggest culprit here is the sanctuary city policies of the city. This guy should not have even been around to commit this crime. He should have been deported a long time ago. And that is really the real problem in this whole thing, is that he shouldn't have been there.
Well, it's going to make it a federal issue, I think, all over again, and go back to the issue of sanctuary cities. All right, let's move on to story number 9, another outrageous story. Sexual assault accusations are running rampant, and this time they hit NBC's Today Show, Matt Lauer. Here is his former co-host, Savannah Guthrie, and Dota talking about that when they found out the morning of.
Moments ago, NBC News Chairman Andy Lack sent the following note to our organization. Dear colleagues, on Monday night, we received a detailed complaint from a colleague about inappropriate sexual behavior in the workplace by Matt Lauer. It represented, after serious review, a clear violation of our company's standards. As a result, we have decided to terminate his employment. While it is the first complaint about his behavior in the over 20 years he has been at NBC News, we were also presented with reason to believe this may not have been an isolated incident. Our highest priority is to create a workplace environment where everyone feels safe and protected, and to ensure that any actions that run counter to our core values are met with consequences, no matter who the offender. We are deeply saddened by this turn of events, but we will face it together as a news organization and do it in as transparent a manner as we can.
All right, so Jared, and I misspoke. It's Hoda, not Doda. I don't know what I was saying. I actually really like Hoda. What was your take on this particular story? Were you as shocked as they all pretended to be at NBC? And I say pretended because a lot of people say that they've known about this for years.
Well, I mean, the thing is what the crazy thing is that NBC clearly knew about this and were worried that the story was going to break. And that, I think, is what's so shocking in this, is that clearly people there knew that this was going on. Only when they had the pressure that maybe this was going to leak out to the media did this finally blow up and he finally be forced to step down. They got rid of course, he issued an apology and all these kind of things. But honestly, with this thing, we've had now so many of these cases. I mean, we've just had one after another of these sexual predators like Lauer is. You know, it seems like, well, can they really shock us? But then this one comes along, and it really is quite shocking. I mean, the allegations against him are some of the worst we've seen. A man able to trap women in his office because he had a button under his desk. All these things
I mean,
that make you
you can lock your door in your office like that. I mean, how many people have offices like that?
It's incredible.
The president may be having that, but why does Matt Lauer have it?
And there's the question says, how did NBC allow this to happen? How did they allow him to have a button under his desk to allow this? So I think there can be a lot of questions over this. Is how they kind of fostered this environment where somebody like a Matt Lauer could conduct this kind of behavior for years without any attention or without any condemnation. It's really incredible.
Yeah. Tommy, before we comment, let's go ahead and move on to the next sexual assault storyline here. This one in Washington. And this is, of course, the one surrounding Representative Conyers of Michigan. Take a look at this back and forth between his attorney and Nancy Pelosi.
I pray for Congressman Conyers and his family and wish them well. However, Congressman Conyers should resign.
I would like to also address Nancy Pelosi's statement, which I'm sure all of you all are aware of at this juncture, calling on the congressman to resign. First of all, it is not up to Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi did not elect the congressman, and she sure as hell won't be the one to tell the congressman to leave.
So many people were wondering if the pressure was going to become too much and Conyers has actually stepped down, but Tom, it doesn't look like it's not moving that direction right now.
No, it doesn't look like it's moving in that direction at all. This isn't the last time we'll hear from this attorney who says all kinds of things about Congressman Conyers. Here's the bottom line. Matt Lauer got fired.
Right.
Okay, he lost his job.
As did Charlie Rose. Yeah, like within a day or two, they're gone.
Many of the media personalities who've been accused of this, obviously they get fired by their parent company. That's what happens. The people that haven't been fired, that still have their job, John Conyers, Al Franken, Blake Farenthold, these people that have either paid women out or are accused of these disgusting things, still have their job.
And are all quote-unquote public servants. I mean, Matt Lauer might be a public figure, but he's not a public servant, right?
Sure. And due process is one thing. That's before we throw somebody in jail.
Right.
But before we let them hold themselves up as a public servant and tax us and spend our money paying off their claims, you don't get due process for that. I say they have to go.
Jared, apparently Nancy Pelosi, she looks very surprised back there. She finally came around and thinks that Mr. Conyers needs to resign, but it really took a lot of pressure to get her there.
It took enormous pressure, and a lot of Conyers partisans and people are pushing back against Pelosi, saying that this is unfair. They've even had some insinuations that there may be some racial motivations to this whole thing of going after Conyers. So it's really.
But didn't the Congressional Black Caucus itself come out saying we think he should probably step down?
They did, and they've been debating this and discussing this, but there are a lot of people, certainly in Conyers' district, who don't want him to back down over these charges. So, the question is when you have one individual like this, what does it mean for the other individuals who've been accused of these things? Is it a double standard when one is asked to step down, the other one's allowed basically a free pass because he's in a less safe district?
Right. Well, and that's one reason I'm sure all of them are holding very firm, and not one is because if one steps aside, then the pressure on all of them, the domino effect starts. All right, let's move on. These are stories, unfortunately, I'm sure we're going to continue to talk about each week. So let's move on to number 7. Newsweek is claiming that Ivanka Trump plagiarized her own speech. So here's her speaking in India, and they're claiming that she basically used the same speech that she'd done earlier in Tokyo. Take a look.
Our administration is striving to promote greater opportunity for women around the world, both through our domestic reforms and our international initiatives. This summer at the G20 conference, the United States was a founding member of a bold new initiative with the World Bank, the Women Entrepreneur Finance Initiative, also known as WEFI. This facility provides access to capital, networks, and mentorship for women in developing countries. WeFi is the first facility to support women entrepreneurs at this scale, and we anticipate it will be able to leverage in excess of $1 billion in public and private financing. This facility also seeks to address the legal and regulatory barriers that limit opportunities for women entrepreneurs. In the last decade, USAID has promoted women's entrepreneurship through a number of programs, including providing microfinance loans to women in Afghanistan and bringing internet access to women in Nigeria and Kenya.
Okay, so she was speaking, Jared, at a global entrepreneurship summit. She'd spoken at a similar type of event, as I mentioned, in Tokyo a few weeks ago when the president was there on the Asia trip. I mean, why I find this so shocking is I don't know anybody who ever regularly gives speeches who doesn't sometimes refer to another speech they've given. It's their speech. How do you plagiarize yourself?
You really can't. It's kind of incredible, especially Newsweek, a media publication. You know, they follow politicians. They understand that politicians have stump speeches where they go around and they say the same speech, and it's fine. This is not a term paper at, a local college where you have to make sure all your notes are correct. These are speeches that are given for select audiences. They use a lot of the same notes. They use a lot of the same phrases. This is just another example of the media overreacting to something one of the Trumps does and saying, well, this is such an egregious example of plagiarism. Well, it really isn't. This is a very common practice. There's nothing wrong with a politician using the same speech for different audiences.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, tell me if she, if they're willing to complain, well, gosh, we really thought she would have put more into a news speech for us, but it was a similar topic. I mean, why would you have to come up with a whole new speech?
It's absurd. I don't think it's an overreaction. I think it's an attempt at a takedown, but almost an embarrassing one, because plagiarizing is a bad thing. It is a dishonorable thing to do. And you cannot plagiarize yourself. They're accusing her of something, but they're admitting she didn't do it. In the title of their article, it is this is silly season at its height. I lost whatever respect I had for Newsweek by reading this one headline.
Well, let's talk about silly season, another media outlet that we're probably going to lose a little respect for.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the New York Times, who is now openly lobbying against the Republican tax bill. This is one of those where, Tommy, I mean, if you see all the Twitter tweets that they sent out, I mean, giving specific names of senators that they were saying, our readers should call these folks, call Susan Collins, tell her to stand up against this bill. I don't care that it's coming from their opinion page.
No,
of
course not.
It's from their opinion page. But come on.
You can write an opinion editorial that's biased and say, hey, on this news story that we've commented on in a news way, this is our opinion of it. You can't turn yourselves into a grassroots lobbying organization and turn your Twitter feed into a call for action and maintain your credibility as an unbiased news source. They're not trying to be an unbiased news source. At this point, apparently, they just own it, and they're trying to scuttle anything President Trump does. Also, they're wrong. The tax bill is good for the middle class. They say it's bad for the middle class. It's an $1,182 cut for the average family. And they say it's bad for the economy. And that's not true. We're looking at almost 3% in additional GDP growth because of this tax bill. They're smart enough to know those things. They're lying and they're biased.
Honestly, I'm kind of glad they did this because it does reveal what they are. They're a liberal publication that has a opinion, has a strong belief system, and they're going out there and basically doing what you would almost expect from like a super PAC or something like that.
Right.
But it reveals to the public this is what the New York Times is. They are advocating for these issues. They're literally put the
But I have never
phone
even
numbers.
seen, I mean, like, whether it's, say, the National Review or the Weekly State, I'm just saying some conservative publications that admittedly say we are a conservative publication. I've never seen them do anything along these lines, promoting a certain piece of legislation or trying to take it down.
Well, also the extreme part of putting the names of the senators and putting their numbers and getting phone numbers, it really seemed like a political action, which I have to say, any New York Times op-ed trashing Citizens United in the future, I feel has to come into a little bit of question here, given the fact that they are doing this. So, they're kind of like kind of violating that idea with this thing. So, no, it is absolutely unbelievable what they did. It's very, very revealing.
All right, let's go to story number 5. This one happening, or not happening, I should say, at the Supreme Court, because they've rejected an appeal from an attorney in Mississippi who wants to have the Mississippi state flag changed, removed from public places and the like. So, Jared, on this one, kind of give us a background here as you understand it.
Yeah, I mean, there was basically this court case that was over the fact that part of the Mississippi flag was actually a Confederate, part of the Confederate battle flag. It's not the Confederate state flag, it's the battle flag, which was usually associated with the Army of Northern Virginia. It's been on their flag for a very long time. This one individual thought that it essentially should be considered illegal, and he took this case to the Supreme Court, which even got thrown out even by the liberal justices are against this.
And by the way, it never got even approved at the state appeals level either, right?
Right.
He never got any court to say we agree.
Absolutely not. And I think that the problem with this is trying to resolve this issue in the courts is a big mistake. I mean, look, it is up to the people of whatever state or locality. If they want to change their flag, that is up to them. But trying to use the courts to basically change the thing that has been around for a very long time, their flag, is the wrong way to go about it. And I don't think the courts are going to side with individuals who do this.
Yeah, well, and the governor, Phil Bryant, there, Republican, has come out and said, look, if there are ways to do it, you're absolutely right. We can put it up for a vote if we want to do that, but you don't just mandate it through a court system.
Absolutely.
All right, number 4, President Trump is donating his salary to fight the opioid crisis. Take a look at this.
I'm here to talk about the check that I was just given, written by President Trump to HHS using his third quarter salary. His decision to donate his salary is a tribute to his compassion, to his patriotism, and his sense of duty to the American people. But it's his compassion, above all, that drives his interest in the issue to which HHS is going to devote his donation, America's devastating opioid crisis.
So President Trump donating his salary here to the opioid crisis. And of course, this isn't the first time he's done something like this, Tommy. This was for this quarter, but in past quarters, he's donated to other groups. What's the impact of something like that, do you think?
Well, let's put it in contrast with the story from earlier. We've got some congressmen taking money, our taxpayers, and paying off women who have accused them of sexual harassment. That's in addition to the salary that they take home. We've got President Trump saying, I don't want it. Let's put it towards important causes, and I'll use it. The money, I don't know what this would be, $120,000 or something. Probably isn't that impactful in the grand scheme of things, but it's an important symbol. And he's saying, this is a priority to me. This is a priority fight, and it is. The opioid crisis is an epidemic. I'm glad the president's focusing on it. It's a selfless act, obviously. But I don't think it's about the money so much as it's about the symbol. And I'm glad he chose this symbol. He's showing this is important to me personally. It's important to people, a lot of people across the country. I think it's going to be a real political winner.
Especially when you look at all the politicians, when people run, especially for the presidency, and you look at their tax statements and how much they've all given to charity. Yes. And those usually who have the biggest hearts when it comes to spending the taxpayer dollars are often the stingiest when it comes to actually giving to charity and the like.
Their own money.
But he's setting a good example.
He is. He's a wealthy man. He said, I don't really need this money. I'm going to give it to causes. And there have been some very good ones. I know another big one that I liked is that he gave it to national parks, battlefields that desperately do need help. I realize this is kind of a small drop in the bucket considering all the needs that they have, but it is very symbolic. It gets people to be aware that this is a problem and that they maybe will donate their own money and it'll be a bigger cause. So I think it's a very good thing. The president steps and uses the bully pulpit to bring attention to these things.
It should be interesting to see if any of these government agencies will start, as they lobby congressmen, and they start lobbying the president, hey, next quarter, could you donate that to us? I would not be a bit surprised. All right, number 3, a former Twitter employee. Here's a clip of him on why he shut down President Trump's Twitter account. Take a look.
My opinion, it was definitely a mistake. And if I'm involved in this, I really apologize if I hurt anyone. So I didn't do anything on purpose. But as I said, I had a wild time in America, and I was tired sometimes, and everyone can do mistakes. So it might be that I did a mistake.
Okay, so that young man formerly worked for Twitter, and apparently this happened, Tommy, on his last day on the job. He's now back in Germany, where he's originally from, which is where he sat down to do the interview. He's probably scared to do it here. I don't know. But do you think he really meant to do this?
I didn't get a whole lot of information from that interview. It sort of sounds like...
Well, if you read the whole story, it was hard to kind of follow what happened.
Well,
Twitter seems confused, too.
He's kind of admitting it, kind of not admitting it. It sounds a little bit like I sounded in 5th grade when I got caught not having my homework done. He's not really answering the questions. He claims he had some wild times while he was working at Twitter and was tired. I'm not really sure what's going on here. He says he didn't do anything wrong. Didn't do anything he was unauthorized to do, but if he deactivated the president's Twitter account, he definitely did something he was unauthorized to do.
Well, and Jared, as you read parts of the story, I mean, they talk about the fact, some of the things that people said, well, he shouldn't be shutting down his Twitter account because he tweets things that are like, mean to North Korea. But Twitter itself, it said, yeah, but they're newsworthy, so therefore we're going to keep his account alive. It seems like Twitter needs to figure out what they're doing, the company itself.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter, it's been a lot of the complaints with Twitter is that they are selectively going after certain people with certain political opinions that they don't like. They're going, now, given when they nuked the president's account, that's a major international story. And
it was a full 11 minutes.
It was 11 minutes of silence, which, of course, became a major story, which, of course, is how this guy learned about his actions, discovered, oh my gosh, everybody's talking about how I just nuked the president's account. So it is which he got nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for, by the way. It's kind of a funny thing. But yeah, I mean, it shows you also that, how Twitter has such a powerful medium that if the president gets shut down for 11 minutes, it's an international story.
Well, especially when the president has 43 million, at last count, Twitter followers, and they were saying there several 100,000 get added like every week or something. It's insane. All right, let's talk about Washington's, well, it's not really the whole D.C., but the war on Christmas here in D.C. This is one of those where many of you out there who aren't familiar with the metro system here in D.C., but we have buses and we have a subway and all the like. And the Catholic Diocese here in Washington wanted to run their campaign on the sides of buses in the metro, but because it had a religious message, they have said, we don't want to do that.
Yeah,
we're not going to take your advertising.
It's really incredible, actually, that the scene that was displayed was basically just showed some shepherds. It was a very kind of common
It's a nativity-looking scene.
It's a nativity-looking. It wasn't quite a nativity, but it was definitely something that you associate with Christmas, which, of course, is a holiday that has a religious tone to it.
Christ
Mass. That's like kind of not a shocking thing, but the Metro shut it down, saying that they no longer want religious messages and things like this. Now, the diocese is very upset by this and says that it's a violation of their First Amendment rights. They are suing Metro for this. And look, it is a problem in our way of life that religion is disappearing from public sphere. And it's only become apparent in this fight, too, is that, look, there's so many other things for Christmas. They're all, there without the religious symbol. But the very point of the holiday is being obliterated for this ad that is of a very good cause.
Well, and it just
donating to charity.
And it says give the perfect gift, basically, right? So it's encouraging people to come to churches and say you have to, but I mean that's what it is. It's not it's not even overtly religious in the sense of what you think about religious advertising. But this came out because they said a couple of years ago they made a decision they weren't going to do any political ads, basically,
right,
or anything in that genre. So politics, religion, I guess the First Amendment is no longer part of the D.C. metro system.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say it's shocking to see this happen with how Metro's kind of handled some of the decisions in the past, but it is a little sad to see that they're going to no longer to put anything that even has a hint of religiosity in it. It's definitely something that, I mean, look, I don't know what the result of the court case is going to be, but it does have a lot of implications for our way of life if even the smallest hint of religiosity has to be nuked in a public sphere.
Yeah, that's right. All right, but of course they will take ads for anything you're buying and selling,
yes,
right?
They will reference the commercial side of Christmas,
exactly.
but not the
Absolutely.
reason Christmas exists in the first place.
Absolutely. Well, somebody who is representing Christmas and keeping Christmas in Christmas is the president. Take a look at this clip.
And remember, I was the one, when I was here last time, I said, we're going to have Christmas again. I was the one that said you go to the department stores and you see Happy New Year and you see red and you see snow and you see all these things. You don't see Merry Christmas anymore. With Trump as your president, we are going to be celebrating Merry Christmas again, and it's going to be done with a big, beautiful tax cut.
So that was President Trump speaking in Missouri. They're really at a tax reform rally, but he took the opportunity to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. And I was just joking as we were talking here while you all were watching that clip. When he spoke at the Heritage Foundation dinner a few weeks ago, he wished everybody there a Merry Christmas as well. So he's always in the holiday spirit. Jared, there's been a lot of feedback because the White House has been really playing this up this year, and the way they've decorated the Christmas card says Merry Christmas again for the first time in like 8 years. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, this is actually, in many ways, it is a response to the Obama administration that was trying to kind of push out the Christian aspect of the Christmas holiday kind of moved to more of the happy holidays thing, which has become a big cultural issue. I mean, let's be frank, Donald Trump in large part brought this issue of saying Merry Christmas again. You know, we kind of laugh about it a little bit, but it is a serious thing. You know, where in society can you say Merry Christmas? Do you have to say Happy Holidays? What holidays are you talking about? The Obama administration, in some of its official policies in the White House, tried to remove some of these symbols. The Trump administration is signaling that, no, we're going to bring these back and they're here to stay. So it does have a significance in, you know, the public sphere for sure.
Yeah. Tommy, why does this drive the left so crazy?
Well,
I mean,
I
just
love it.
Merry Christmas.
The president has just the most fantastic way of finding those things that do
This
drive
needle.
the left
Right.
crazy. Merry Christmas is not offensive. But by them saying it's offensive, it's their way of trying to push the religion out of Christmas and pretend that this thing that the whole culture celebrates has nothing to do with religion. And of course it does. You can't ignore that. And I love the way the president does this with a smile. We've got more years of this, and I'll say to our audience, Merry Christmas.
One of the most fun things that we did last year was we went out on the streets and we asked people what they thought you should say. Should it be Merry Christmas? Should it be Happy Holidays? What should it be? And every single time when it would be a parent and a child, the child always said it should be Merry Christmas, and the parents were confused about what it should be. So, you know, from the mouth of babes. All right, thank you guys very much for being here with us this week.
Thank you.
Have a
Merry
great
Christmas
weekend.
early to you.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you all for joining us as well. We will see you back here next week on the Daily Signal's Top 10.